Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing The Fast and Furious, the third install in the Fast franchise series, Tokyo Drift. Directed by Justin Lin, returning director who has come back for several Fast and Furious franchise movies after this one. So people like his direction, at least from behind the studios. Produced by Neil H. Moritz, as usual, written by Chris Morgan. I think this is the first one Chris Morgan becomes the solidified Fast writer. It's starring Lucas Black, Bow Wow, Nathalie Kelly, and Sung Kang. Sung Kang, not exactly what his ethnicity was. His origins are South Korean. Okay. And he's from Georgia, but he's actually so he's not actually from South Korea. So, anyways, Tokyo Drift is the third install in the Fast franchise. Many people hold it in high regards for a number of reasons. I think after watching it, I can safely say that it's the Justin Lin slick look and feel between Justin Lin and the direction, and Brian Tyler brings this interesting music with the cinematography from Stephen and F. Wyndon. And I believe Brian Tyler and Justin Lin are the ones, and Chris Morgan are the ones behind the scenes that continuously join the Fast and the Furious and their chases and the franchise. Let me see if how accurate it is to the Fast Four from behind the scenes. Yeah, Justin Lin, same director. Basically the same producers. Vin Diesel becomes a producer on the fourth film. It's written by Chris Morgan again, and that's when we bring back the family. It does have a different cinematographer and different editing crew, so it is slightly different from that standpoint. I will say that Tokyo Drift, like I said, it is a slick-looking film. It's got an interesting cast that doesn't it's an uneven cast, is what I think most people would say. Lucas Black. Well, what can we say? I want to be a nice guy. I want to be a nice guy, and I got to say that the script Lucas Black is given is not exactly the best script to say. But let me kind of give you a little bit of background on Tokyo Drift. Back, I was gonna say Tokyo Drift Back to the Future. It feels like Tokyo Drift Back to the Future. No, it's not. Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift is a 2006 action film directed by Justin Lin with a screenplay by Chris Morgan. It's a standalone sequel for Too Fast, Too Furious, and the third installment in the Fast and Furious franchise. It stars Lucas Black, Sung Kang, Bow Wow, and Brian T. The Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift follows high school car enthusiast Sean Boswell, who is sent to live in Tokyo with his father and finds solace in the city's drifting community. Little bit of behind the scenes about Lin, the director. He was hired due to his work on Better Luck Tomorrow. I'm a little bit let me see, crime drama film. Haven't really seen too much about that or heard too much about it. Must have been pretty good. Had Sung Kang in it, though. Let me see. Unable to secure the returns of any of the series' original cast members, plans were made by developers to consider Tokyo Drift and make it a distinct entry in the franchise, which was achieved by focusing on a car subgenre. Incorporating a location outside the United States and establishing new characters. Subsequently, the chronological timeline of the franchise shifted with all the future installments until Furious 7, being set between Too Fast and Too Furious 2003 and Tokyo Drift. Okay, so the film also marks the first to begin the franchise's longtime association with Lin and Morgan. Like I said, they became the main director and writer. And the composer Brian Tyler Lynn went on to direct three sequels and is attached to direct three additional feature films. While Morgan wrote the next five installments, Tyler would go on to score the next four of the five sequels. So I told you this crew has been sticking together for a while. Casting began '05. Principal photography began around in LA in August of '05, and the majority of the film was shot in Tokyo. The majority of the reviews regarding Tokyo Drift were negative, I think mostly from the critical side. I think this might be a low key sleeper hit with people around my age, around like 25 to 35 or something like that. I want to say that they were playing Tokyo Drift nonstop on TNT when I was watching it for quite a long time. So it was created on a budget of $85 million, which I believe is $10 million more dollars approximately than the Too Fast, Too Furious movie, the previous one. And it made almost $100 million less, which is not great at all. Definitely not good on that. Let me see. Too Fast, Too Furious was a $76 million budget, and it made $236 million. And then Tokyo Drift, yeah, $10 million more dollars and made almost slightly less than, yeah, it made like 80 million less, which is not good. Not having the family and not having Brian O'Connor and having all of our established characters from the previous movies did not help out the franchise at all. Let me get a little bit of coffee. So, let me see what we got. Um, excuse me, I just drank like 3 gallons of coffee. Tried to get this kick started. Um, or jump started. So it's another runtime of 104 minutes. I think this is the last movie that is around an hour and 40 minutes. Oh no, the next one is an hour and 40. So it's the fifth one that becomes the full action franchise feel with an over 2 hour movie. So let me see what else we got. Anything else we got? Okay, so I got some tweets that I've been reading off of since I've been watching the Fast franchise from at LuckyDog Podcast on Twitter. Let me pull them up real quick. I should have had them up sooner than this. Beep a doop bop 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 bop. So we're not on Fast 1, we're on Fast 3. And we got the family. The family, the family. Let me tell y'all, I've been watching the Fast and Furious franchise over the past week, and I gotta tell y'all that hopping in the car every time, it's like, it's like I can appreciate the look and the feel and the sound of the car a lot more after watching these movies. And I'm not sure if that's exactly what they were trying to get you to do, but it definitely has me more of a gearhead after watching this. So, Tokyo Drift. This was my tweet. Watching the last reboot of the first three movies, the biggest problem. Okay, so I actually can't talk about this until we get into spoilers. But I will say the biggest problem comes from the story and really the fact is they should have had Sung Kang as the main character in my opinion. The studios just would not give the money to $85 million with a South Korean lead in Tokyo about cars. I just don't think that would have happened in 2005 or whenever the hell they were making this. Um, so that's that was one thing. Another thing is this is an extremely fast turnaround. Casting began in '05. I assume this everything was scripted out before '05, but then it was released in June '06, like a year later, which is like quick ass turnaround. I mean, what it's telling me is that these were kind of expensive movies at the time. I'd say going between 50 and $100 million for not knowing if you're going to make 200, 300, 400 million dollars. But not only that, they were super fast turnarounds. Um, Let me see what else we got. I think I only had one tweet about Tokyo Drift. I was like, I don't know if I have too much to say about this one. So yeah, let me talk about the movie. Like I said, the look, the feel, the direction. I think from the aesthetics of understanding and feeling like you're in Tokyo and appreciating the location, just like the previous two movies, where the previous one was in Miami and kind of given the urban Latin vibe. The previous one before that, Fast One, that was in L.A. and having the L.A. Underground street racing EDM scene. And each one of these do have a completely different feel. This one kind of rounds back again with the music being a little bit more like electronic and definitely Japanese based. I believe that they're probably artists that they use directly from Japan. And everyone knows that ding, 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 ding. It's like it gets hype is what it does. And I think that Justin Lin brings an interesting energy to this film. The My biggest problem about this Tokyo Drift is the story feels kind of all over the place. The main character is not exactly likable. He doesn't listen to anybody. Every time someone tells him not to do anything, he does it anyway, and he kind of puts himself he puts himself in this like position in a way, and it's just I don't really know how to describe it without saying that it's just like this character is not exactly likable. Lucas Black's character as this 17-year-old kid that looks like he's about 40, um, like he's not a likable character, and there's not many things about his character that make him feel redeeming or relatable. The thing was, I think they were trying to have a Paul Walker stand-in or liked Paul Walker, but younger. That Lucas Black is 10 years younger, but really, I don't feel like he appears or comes off any younger than what Brian O'Connor was in, the first Fast and Furious. Brian O'Connor, Paul Walker kind of always looked like he was in college or fresh out of college, just because he had timeless looks, and he was able to pull that off for quite a while. The studios didn't believe that he was able to pull off the studio. They didn't believe he was going to be able to pull off his age. I guess once it hit '05. So it was interesting that they were going to scrapped everything. I do want to look. I'll look at another review about Paul Walker's career, because I know that he wasn't just in the Fast and Furious franchise. He had some more dramatic roles that I can't remember off the top of my head what the movies were called, but I heard that they're pretty decent. And he had an interesting career, and watching it blossom through the Fast franchise, I definitely think Paul Walker got better as an actor. So what else do we have? All right. And again, I'm sorry for any like banging or clanging in the background. The studio is right beside a larger event space, and they're doing some craziness in there the last few days. It's been hard to get all these casts in after watching all these Fast and Furious movies. So bear with me on the sound a little bit. Thank y'all. And again, thank you for listening, watching LuckyDog podcast. This was a little bit more of a scatterbrained review. I normally have a little bit more concise, but just to kind of have a concise feel about this movie. It looks and sounds great. The story is lacking. Pacing is still pretty good with this one. Like I said, the first four movies all are under 2 hours, and they feel very breezy. The next one is under 4 hours. Sorry, under 2 hours as well, And the one thing that I think the first three movies really accelerate in, pun intended, um, the the practical effects. I think that's why the majority of these movies in the first few years were so quick turnaround, that the practical effects and the set pieces weren't ridiculously over the top, and the majority of them seemed plausible within their own realm. It's around the fourth movie where things just fly off the handlebars, and things just go haywire. Not in like a bad way, but it's just the point where, you know, uh, the first three movies, they normally were saying, leaving these they have these like flashes at the very end of the movie that say, don't do this, don't try this at home, don't go out in your car and yeah, try to be family, dom family, don't try to join the family, don't try to street race, don't be doing all this craziness, this is a movie, don't be doing this. I'm pretty sure they stop showing that screen around the fourth or fifth movie, when they clearly are doing things that no one could even think about even trying to do. So, like I said, the plausibility, the practical effects are still within the same realm, and that's why I think people like Tokyo Drift, because we're still able to use a lot of practical effects, even though there is a nice blend of CG. Not that the CG always ages well; so it kind of is, the CG ages from movie to movie depending on what you're looking at, but they're still using a decent amount of practical effects in this Tokyo Drift. So, thank you for listening, watching Lucky Dog Podcast. To check out the spoiler-filled review, check out patreon.com/LuckyDog Podcast. You'll get the full review. We'll talk about the plot. We talk about family. Talk about bro. Talk about, well, I guess there's no family in Tokyo Drift, but we'll still talk about, the Tokyo family, I guess, if they tried, whatever family they tried to have there. So, yeah, that's where you'll find everybody. That's where the VIP section is, patreon.com/LuckyDog Podcast. Let me know how we can improve. Let me know what you're looking for in your reviews. And here we go. Okay, so here is the plot of, let me see. Sorry, I need to brighten up this shit. Can't see shit. Can't see shit. Oh, shit. All right. And just like those other reviews, for some reason, the people who are writing these Wikipedia and synopses about what's happening in the movie, they add all the information about what cars they're driving and whatnot. I was like, okay, they know their shit. And get a little coffee. Here's the plot. Troubled Oro Valley High School student Sean Boswell and athlete Clay race their cars, a 1971 Chevrolet Monte Carlo and a 2003 Dodge Viper, to win the affections of Clay's girlfriend, Cindy. When Sean cuts through a structure and catches up to Clay, desperate to win, hits Sean's cars repeatedly until they reach a high-speed turn, which causes both of the cars to crash. Clay's Viper hits a cement pipe, and Sean's Monte Carlo rolls. Clay and Cindy's wealthy families help them escape punishment, but because Sean is he's a repeat offender of driving like an asshole, he is sent to live in Japan with his father, a U.S. Navy officer stationed in Tokyo, in order to avoid juvenile detention or jail. So, okay, so I guess it makes a little bit more sense why he has to be 17. The thing is, casting Lucas Black as a 17-year-old is just absolutely unbelievable from the start of of this movie. Um, Continuing on with what was going wrong with this beginning opening, Tokyo Drift is opening up in like the middle of bumfuck uh, some midwestern state. Like I was kind of bewildered in their choice to do that. I kind of figured, Tokyo Drift, you'd open up maybe in Tokyo, I guess. I don't know. That just sounds like a crazy idea to me. And so, anyways, the opening is feels like a music video, even from the beginning, from the music, from the cars to the girls. It definitely feels like they're trying to encapsulate everything that was said and proclaimed into the first two movies, Cars, Girls, um, and I guess like a little bit of ego boosting, like alpha ego boosting. I'm not exactly sure what the boistering, I think is what the word's called. So, anyways, I didn't think that it was very believable that this type of racing would scale to this degree. And isn't this the Home Improvement boy from Home Improvement? This is I don't remember his name, but I'm pretty sure it was the young man that was on Home Improvement. It's funny to see him old and an asshole. um, so, anyways, I dare you to ask anyone that says Tokyo Drift um, is a classic. Ask these people that say it's a classic what the name of the main character is. I guarantee you most people can tell you what Paul Walker's name is in Fast and Furious. The majority that are fans of Tokyo Drift, I bet you cannot tell me his name is Sean Boswell. I'm actually going to probably post something on Instagram about that just to kind of make a joke, just to say, like, this is not a memorable movie. It's not a memorable character. People, I think everyone agrees about that. So, anyways, I was surprised that Sean was able to capture the attention of the football captain's girlfriend, and I was like, all right, well, he ends up pissing her off anyway. So he kind of plays himself. But anyways, the age thing makes sense for him not to go to juvenile detention or jail. The thing is, he is so young. He's supposed to be much younger than he is. So when he goes to live with his father in Japan, his father looks like he's talking to like a 30-year-old man. And I think, what was it? I think that Lucas Black was in his early 30s at this point. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, um, so we're in Tokyo now. While in Tokyo, Sean befriends Twinkie, a military brat who introduces him to the world of drift racing in Japan. Sean has a confrontation with uh, Takashi, the Drift King, DK, um, who drives a 2003 Nissan 350Z. Over Sean talking to Takashi's girlfriend, Nayla, um, though barred from driving, Sean decides to race against Takashi, who has ties to the Yakuza, in a 2001 Nissan Silva S15 Spec S loaned by a racer named Han, but loses his first race with Takashi due to his unfamiliarity with drifting. Why on earth would you think that just because they have some sort of rep sheet that the cops give Lucas Black, saying, all right, this is the list of things he's done and this is what he's accused of doing, but why? I don't really understand what the thinking was of Lucas Black. Everything he does not listen to Twink. He doesn't listen to his father. He doesn't listen to his mother. He doesn't listen to anybody. He barely listens to himself. And Twink is supposed to be his friend. It's this random guy that just comes up and like starts talking to him. I don't know why anybody would be friends with uh, I don't know why anybody would be friends with Sean. He is not a likable guy from like head to toe, in my opinion. He doesn't listen. And so, yeah, of course he's going to lose. And the worst thing about this movie, this is kind of where I talked about my Twitter post. I was saying, watching the last reboot. I call the third movie the last reboot, sort of, because it is like a reboot. The second one's technically a reboot, but anyways, watching the last reboot of the three movies, the biggest problem is believing Han would ever give the keys to his car to a 17 going on 40 Lucas Black. Um, Justin Lin provides interesting direction, but the script ain't helping. So, yeah, it Han is by far the most interesting person in this movie. Twink is just kind of there for simple exposition and trying to be the Tyrese or the co-star to this um, movie. And I personally don't have a problem with Bow Wow. I think I've always liked Bow Wow since like Mike. I think he has some weird history of some sort going on, but I'm not going to go into that. Don't have time to do that. So let me see what else we got. Oh, Lanta. To repay his debt for the car he destroyed, Sean agrees to work for Han, who drives a 1997 Mazda RX-7. This leads to the duo becoming friends, with Han agreeing to teach Sean how to drift, explaining that he is helping him as Sean is the only person willing to stand up to Takashi. I still think that Han being so nice to Lucas Black just did not even jive with me at all. I didn't really understand what the heck the deal was. Um, I don't really. I didn't see why Han would ever trust Lucas to do anything. Everything he does, everything Lucas Black does, is like against the rules of everything. So, or is against if someone says to do something, Lucas Black is like, all right, how can I go against that? And I just feel like Han and Lucas Black could have, or Sung Kang and Lucas Black could have had more of a father teacher student connection, not father son, teacher student connection. Um, but we don't learn enough about Han in this movie, in my opinion, to really understand his motivations of why he's helping Lucas Black out. So it just makes it look like he's just passing on useless cars, or use the cars he's not using or the money he's not using to Lucas Black for like absolutely no reason. And I just can't figure out why would Han trust him like that. I don't It drives me up the wall a little bit. um, this leads to the duo becoming friends, and it's a lot of it feels like forced friendship. Like Lucas Black is not exactly a likable guy in the movie, so it feels like when people are coming up to him and saying all this, it's just like, wow, you stood up to DK, the guy, the Drift King, and he's with the Yakuza. It's like I don't. The Yakuza would take Lucas Black's ass out so fast. I couldn't even like describe that how much they wouldn't deal with this shit. I don't know. And I think the dealing with the Yakuza could have been interesting, but it's really has not much to do with. It's more like being in association with the Yakuza, not exactly like dealing with the Yakuza. All right. So, anyways, um, okay. So he's the only person who's Han. Han's helping Sean because he's the only one that'll stand up to DK. Sean moves in with Han and soon masters drifting by practicing in a 2006 Mitsubishi Evo, gaining respect after defeating DK's right-hand man, Morimoto. I do appreciate how they show Sean actually trying to get better at drifting. I felt like in some of the Fast and Furious, there's not exactly like training. It's just like they kind of race until they're better or not, and so that's kind of what the deal is. And so um, continuing on with that, I do like to see the progression of these people. Um, well, I like to see them get stronger or get better at what they're doing. I'm not exactly sure. Han's just like there watching Lucas Black kind of do it. I don't remember if they really say what to do, if anything, that's different from what he's already doing. Just drift better, I guess. And I might get a little bit scolded for this, but I personally think that drifting is one of the not as visually interesting car maneuvers to do when you're racing. I feel like drifting. I mean, obviously they show why you have to drift into Japan because there's not as much room for tracks and stuff like that. So they're driving in situations and in tight quarters where it would require drifting. I think that, showing racing and drifting around all of the, really tight corners can be interesting for a couple of races or maybe one or two races. But I didn't ultimately feel like drifting as a concept in perspective of the rest of the Fast franchise is as visually interesting and as gripping as some other races are. So like sometimes I felt like the drag races and even Too Fast Too Furious were a little bit better than Tokyo Drift when it came down to just like the heart and the pump of the motor of the pacing of what's happening. So I did find that drifting, some may like it more than others. Let me see. Sorry, I looked up and some craziness going on in the news. Let me see what else we got. All right, so Sean defeats Morimoto, and Morimoto's forgotten here in the third act. Here in a little bit, Sean asks Nayla out on a date. Oh, okay. So before they go on the date and everything, Sean is told by his father, who is just like a really unlikable ass for almost absolutely no reason, tells he tells his son, you can't drive, can't race, can't do any of that, and it's mostly so that he doesn't go back to juvie or jail. So that was the biggest thing. When it came down to Sean listening, he doesn't listen. His father and him never have a conversation in a way that really explores their background. I mean, Sean does like these backhanded passive aggressive jabs about him not being there when he was younger. It's like, my God, can you just let that go? I mean, clearly your parents are split at this point, so he's doing you a favor by having you there, and there's no likability between the two characters, unfortunately, and that's just me personally. Some other people might see a little bit more empathy or sympathy that the father's giving Sean at some points, but I never felt like there's anything that says why his father would ever give him a car to race against the Yakuza. So that was my biggest thing. Let me see what else we got. So Sean's going on a date with Nayla. Neela is beautiful actress. For the love interest, they got to have somebody that is absolutely stunning. And my biggest problem is that she is in school with Sean. So this kind of weaves into them being too young for the people that they're around. Han, how old is Han supposed to be? And he looks the same age as Lucas Black, and I know Han's not supposed to be 17. So Han and DK and all those people that are hanging out with, they got to be like younger people. I mean, every other line I felt like from Han or DK or something like that was in regards to them saying the ages of the people that they were hanging around. They're like, come on now, you don't need to be hanging out with them. Why are you hanging out with them? Why, she's too young for you. It's like, why is he hanging out with her? I had a lot of questions about why he was so obsessed with like this young girl. When I was watching this initially, I never thought about how young they were supposed to be. It's like 17, and DK is supposed to easily be in his 20s. So I don't know what the age is in Tokyo, but I don't know, it's getting a little sketchy there. So let me see. Okay, so Sean asks Nayla out on a date and learns that after her mother died, she moved in with DK's grandmother, which resulted in their relationship. An enraged DK beats up Sean the next day, telling him to stay away from Nayla. Nayla subsequently leaves DK and moves in with Sean and Han. This is the most bizarre thing that I thought that probably could have happened. I could see after I kind of forgot that she moved in with DK, but that makes the relationship even more weird. That like I'm not exactly sure how old she was supposed to be when she moved in with DK, but she might have had like kind of a brother sister relationship and like a almost like a sibling type family relationship, and then she ended up like he started like trying to date her or something. There's some fucked up dynamics going on with DK's family and whatever happened to Nayla. So let me see. Takashi's uncle, Kamada, the head of the Yakuza, reprimands DK for allowing Han to steal from him. Takashi Morimato confront Han, Sean, and Nayla about the thefts. Twinkie causes a distraction, allowing Han, Sean, and Nayla to flee, who are pursued by Takashi and Morimato. During the chase, okay, so it takes up to this point in the movie, in my opinion, for there to be any stakes or anything interesting remotely happening in this movie with regards of, you know, bumping up the stakes. Most of the time you want to bump up the stakes in movies to like a really high degree so that people are just like, oh shit, this is some next level. I don't feel like Tokyo Drift bumps up the stakes until at least this part where Takashi and Morimato, confront Han. During the chase, Morimato is killed in a crash, leaving Takashi, DK, to pursue the trio on his own. Han allows Sean to overtake him in order to hold Takashi off, but the chase ends when Sean and Nayla crash. Meanwhile, moments after escaping from Takashi, Han's car is T-boned, and the car explodes before Sean has a chance to save Han. So at this point, I feel this is when it's just kicked into high gear. Like, no pun intended, this is when it literally kicks into high gear. We have stakes to the movie. People care. It feels like such a slog of trying to understand and get through this movie. It's definitely got the tropes of many sports movies in a way of, teaching the young person to do something, almost like the elements of the Karate Kid of something like that. I don't remember exactly if this is how it went down, but teaching the young one to do the thing, and then once they start to get a certain level and they take out one of the underlings, there's a big attack from the antagonist side, and then from the antagonist side, they retaliate back. Normally, when the antagonist retaliates back, they retaliate by attacking like someone older, or someone that has taught them everything they know. Think of Star Wars, and then they retaliate back, take out that one, the person that taught them everything, and then it's up to the young buck to come back and give them the sucker punch where they deserve. And so, with saying all of that, here we go. So, Takashi's DK, Sean, and his father become involved in an armed standoff, which is resolved by Neela agreeing to leave with DK. So I do got to say, this was the most action you see his father do at all. I felt like they shot all of the scenes with his father in like 2 days. It's like they're in two places at one point. I wish the father could have had like a chance to maybe understand his son, maybe understand his love for wanting to race, for needing to race, maybe why their relationship went down the hill. It never goes there. That's always talked about in a way of it's just visually showing his father giving him his older ride, his older car. It would have been cool to hear that his dad was, used to be a racer back in the day, but somehow to give it up or something and had to go to Tokyo for war. But what was the motivation motivation for Lucas Black actually wanting to be a racer at all. I don't feel like there was any realization for him wanting to be a racer, except for them explaining, saying that he had a troubled past. So the arm standoff is pretty hype. I'm like, oh shit, Sean's father. I've seen this several times, and I forgot that Sean's father becomes involved. And he's like, oh shit, you ain't gonna do this to my son. I was like, I feel that. So Sean's father prepares to send Sean back, but Sean pleads him to let him fix his own mess. See, this pleading right here, I don't feel like ever is resolved in a way that makes Lucas Black seem smart for taking this on. There's nothing that I felt like in this pleading that ever does it. His father then agrees and makes amends with him. Twinkie gives his money to Sean to replace the money Han stole from DK, which Sean then returns to Kamada. This, the original time I watched this, I didn't realize Han was actually stealing from the Yakuza. So in perspective of what happened to Han, I could definitely see this happening. You know, you're stealing from the mafia, then the mafia is going to come after you, kind of thing. So what else do we have? Sean rolls up like he thinks he's a G when he has his money, going to the Yakuza, his Uncle Kamada, and DK's father is like, you ain't gonna just roll up in here and drop a bag of my money and think you're gonna just roll on out. So I thought it was kind of funny that he proposes a race. I had heard Jeff Kanata talk about how in Fate of the Furious that everything is described and expressed through car, which is absolutely true. It's like if it's a fight or if it's some sort of action that can be expressed through words, it's probably going to be a race. And so this is one of those times where they probably could have just had a conversation, but he's like, "No, we're gonna race. One race, one ride." I can't even do a terrible Lucas Black country impression. It is so off the wall, and I don't even know what kind of country it is. It's. I think the guy has probably some sort of country accent, but I'm not exactly sure what kind of country, because it's like he's still expressing. He says the words really, he expresses the longevity of the word longer. Outlook, it's outlook, so as opposed, commercial. Yeah, there's different ways to have a country accent in a way. I'm looking at the news. Financial, relying on the news notably. Yeah, is that a good Lucas Black impression? I don't know. That dude has an interesting accent in this. All right. So, anyways, so yeah, Kamada agrees to the challenge. Okay, so Sean proposes a race against Takashi, with the loser having to leave Tokyo. Kamada agrees to leave to the challenge, but on the condition that the race to take place on the mountain, revealed to be the mountain where Takashi himself is the only person to take down successfully. Only person to make it down successfully. I gotta say that this is not like a big deal from the viewer's perspective either. We're told DK is the best of the best of the best. We don't really see people falling down the mountain, not being able to make it. It's not like this big overarching thing where they're talking about the whole movie. It feels like they probably should have brought up in the first act that, oh, that's old Drift Mountain and nobody goes down there. They don't need to do it that hammy, but I just felt like as a viewer, it just looks like a windy ass road, and we don't at night to cover up the CG, to be honest. But yeah, I didn't feel like this mountain means anything to us as the viewer. Okay, so the condition has to take place on the mountain. I'm going to call it Drift Mountain. Sean and Han's crew restore Sean's father, 1967 Ford Mustang, fastback to drift specification. using several components of the previously wrecked Silva, including the engine. And that car is almost never shown the entire time, so it doesn't feel like it's not like remember that car? And it for me, I was like, was that the car that was wrecked that he was just driving? Sometimes when they bring back older cars, I'm not exactly sure which car it is. Sometimes they need to be a little bit more specific for me personally, because I'm not like a big car guy. So I'm just like, was that the other car? It's kind of messed up. I can't remember. Um, that night on the mountain, crowds gathered to see the race. Takashi takes the lead initially, but Sean's training allows him to catch up. Determined to win, Takashi resorts to ramming Sean's car, eventually missing and driving off the mountain while Sean crosses the finish line. This is so funny how he ends up like. So the drifting is intense. I think it's a fun and interesting, fun and entertaining race. It's definitely not one of my top races in the Furious franchise. However, I think it does provide some thrills. What doesn't make any sense to me is the car that DK is in seems to be in the air for like what feels like 20 seconds, long enough. He's like in the air and long enough for Lucas Black to get on another lane underneath where he would possibly be. It didn't really make sense how DK was in front of him and Lucas Black is behind him. And so DK's car flies up so far in the air that Lucas Black does a round. He turns around in like the small drifting loop, and he's coming back, and he's almost hit by DK's car coming down, which I was like, how is DK's car still coming down? The physics of his car coming down, the car should have already been down unless Lucas Black was going so fast around that curve that he was able to surpass underneath where DK was going to fall into. I was just like, wait, how high did DK go when he came back down? The logistics of that didn't make any sense to me. So, that was one of the things. The first times in the series, I was like, "Wait a second, this doesn't exactly make sense." But you can't get too nitpicky at the very end of the thing. So, let me see. That night on the mountain, crowds gathered to see the race. Takashi takes the lead initially, but Sean's training allows him to catch up. Determined to win, Takashi resorts to ramming Sean's car, eventually missing and driving off the mountain while Sean crosses the finish line, Takashi's car almost falling on him in the process. Kamada keeps his word and lets Sean remain in Tokyo and is now christened the the new Drift King. I don't know if that should have happened on that. He beat DK once, so just like, let's take it easy now. Sometime later, Nayla, Twink, and Sean are enjoying themselves in their newfound home space and freedom. Dominic Toretto shows up to challenge Sean in a 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner, and he accepts after the American proclaims himself as Han's family. So yeah, that is the end of Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. Let me know what you thought about the review. Let me know how I can improve. Let me know what you thought about Sean Boswell and his country-ass accent, if that's what you want to call it. So look out for more Fast and Furious franchise movie reviews. We have already covered the previous two, and look forward to covering more. Yeah, this gained a 37% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not sure if that's still accurate. It's averaged 4.9 out of 10 for the majority of critics, it looks like. Yeah, it says the site's consensus reads eye-popping driving sequences coupled with a limp story and flat performances. Yeah, the motivations of a lot of these people just didn't really give that oomph that this one really needed. So thank you for listening, watching Look It All podcast. I did want to mention that this movie was kind of not reviewed very well until they added Vin Diesel, which could have guessed that. That was kind of like the creation of having, a universe of some sort, creating a full movie, and then, bringing in older characters that have something to do with the world. So, connecting the world is always something I think a lot of people like. So, yes, thank you for watching, listening, Lucky Dog Podcast. Look for more reviews. Look for the aftercast for when we're discussing non-movie reviews and just random stuff. We actually, an aftercast 23, if you're interested in listening to some conversation with a buddy of mine, Hatham and I, we discuss the Fast and Furious, the first 5 movies in a non-spoiler way in Aftercast 23. So be sure to check that out. Again, patreon.com/LuckyDogPodcast. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for watching on Twitch Live. Thank you for supporting and subscribing on YouTube. Check out all the social medias and take it easy. Bro. Fam.